So you're ready to get some goats. Here's what you need to do to find a reputable breeder. First, before you even look for a breeder, make sure you know what breed of goat you want, what age you're looking for, what gender. You need to have an idea of what you're looking for. That way you can find the best breeder in your area for what you want. So what type of goat do you want? Do you want a dairy goat that is bred specifically for milk production? Do you want a fiber goat, which is bred for the production of fiber? Or do you want a meat goat, which is bred for the production of meat? You have all these options, and once you choose which route you want to take, that'll help narrow it down. Okay, so you've narrowed it down into the categories. Then you need to look into the breeds in that category to determine what breed is right for you. Do you want a full-size goat or do you want a dwarf goat? For me personally, I went with a dairy breed, the Nigerian dwarf goat. I knew I wanted a dairy breed because I am interested in milk production, trying to make my own cheeses and enjoying some goat milk. But I also knew that I didn't want a full-size goat. They were just too big when I have small children at home. I prefer the idea of going with a smaller goat. So that's how I came to decide on the Nigerian dwarf goat, and I am very happy that I chose that. They are a great fit for our farm here at Just One More Story Farm. Now, the next step is, what gender do you want? Do you want a male or a female? Well, if you want just a pet goat, going with a wether, which is a male that's been castrated, is a great option because they're not going to be used in a breeding program. They make a great pet and they tend to be really easygoing and lovable and cuddly. If you want a pet, that's a great way to go. Going with a doeling is also a great option. A doeling is a female goat that is not sexually mature, and so you can get a doeling and they would also make a great pet, or you would have the option of breeding her in the future to use those baby goats. Depending on the breed, you have the option for milk production, fiber production, or meat production. So you'll definitely want to think ahead as to the purpose of your goats would be pet versus production. If you're getting goats for the first time and you just want a pet, your best bet is to go with a wether or with a doe or doeling. If you're looking to get into production, starting with does is a good way to start. Just know that you can't just have one goat. They are herd animals, so you need at least two. So I started with my two doelings, Fancy Nancy and Amelia Bedelia, and they have been great together. What a perfect little herd they've been. And we've just bred Fancy Nancy, and she just had two bucklings, two baby goats. So once these two bucklings are weaned, then I'll be able to milk Fancy Nancy and then be able to drink her milk, maybe a little goat soap. So you can start small and gradually build your herd. Other things to consider: do you want your goats to have horns or no horns? Some goats are born polled, where they are born without buds and they will not develop horns. So if you want a goat that doesn't have horns, you could get a polled goat, or you have the option of getting a goat that has been disbudded, which means the buds that develop into horns have been removed when they were a baby. So you can get a polled goat or a disbudded goat. If you want a goat with horns, that's an option as well. Just keep in mind, with a goat that has horns, it is a bit of a safety risk for the goat and for yourself, just because the horns can get stuck in fencing and the goat can actually die if they get stuck and don't have access to water. They can also cause injuries with other goats in the herd, or injuries to a person, just because those horns can be sharp, they can be dangerous. So those are things to think about before getting a goat with horns. The next option to consider is, do you want a goat that is registered or not registered? So a registered goat is a goat that has certification from an accredited goat association showing that they are purebred. So you would need this if you were going to show your goat, or if you're planning to breed your goat kids are going to be worth more money if they are registered. So I purchased my two goats from a reputable breeder locally and received their registration from the breeder here, which comes from the American Dairy Goat Association, and so it shows their lineage, so their sire and dam, which is the baby goat's mother and father, as well as the grandparents and great-grandparents of the baby goats. So it's nice to be able to see where the baby goats come from. Your breeder should be able to provide you with information on the parents of your goat, possibly even show you the parents of your baby goat if they have them on site, and talk to you about what you can expect with your baby goat as far as personality, temperament, and how they're going to potentially develop based off of their genetics. Now, you can certainly get goats off of Craigslist or from someone locally that is reducing their herd, or from livestock auctions, things like that. But the problem that you may run into is you may not get the healthiest goat. Sure, you will save money initially, but there's a potential in the long run that you could be purchasing an unhealthy goat. Going through a reputable breeder, you're going to pay more for the goat up front, especially for a registered goat. But if it's a reputable breeder who has done the testing, has experience, and has done their due diligence, you are much more likely to get a healthier animal. So definitely something that you're going to have to weigh out and decide what's right for you. I personally purchased my 2 Nigerian dwarf goats from a breeder. They are registered. They were $400 each goat, and they came with their registration paperwork. But what was really important to me, more so than the registration, was that the herd that they came from had been tested for specific goat diseases that you certainly do not want your baby goat to be carrying. And not only did the breeder confirm that they had the testing done, they actually showed me the test results and gave me a copy of those test results. I keep all of that in a protected plastic folder, so that way I have those records. And before I bred Fancy Nancy, I had all of those same tests. I had those tests done on my goat herd here to make sure before breeding that they were still free of those specific diseases before taking them back to the breeder's farm for a driveway breeding. So on the report, it shows that they were tested for Johne's disease, lentivirus, as well as cassius lymphadenitis. So these are lifelong contagious diseases that goats can get, and once it's in your herd, that's it. There's no cure. There's no way to get rid of it from your herd. So you want to make sure when starting your herd, you're getting your goats from a herd that does not have those diseases and has tests to prove that they don't have those diseases. So lentiviruses can cause diseases like CAE, which is caprine arthritis encephalitis. So you may hear the breeders say that they test for CAE, Johne's disease, and CL in goats. CL stands for cassius lymphadenitis, which that is a bacterial disease that can cause abscesses. So it's not something that you want your goats to be carrying. So just having those negative test results can definitely give you some peace of mind when starting your goat herd. So choosing a breeder that has done that testing is a great start. Picking a breeder that is knowledgeable and is willing to help you with any of your questions is priceless. You're going to have so many questions when you're raising goats for the first time. Having a breeder that you can just pick up the phone and call, and they'll answer your questions as they come up, even years later with your goats as you're raising them, that is priceless. Before I took my baby goats home, they were vet checked. They received a health certificate. They had their initial vaccinations and dewormings. They were weaned from their mother. I was able to take them home at 8 weeks of age. And by taking all those steps, finding the right breed for you, finding a good breeder that does the testing, that has them checked over by vets, that knows their herd, and is going to be able to be a resource for you, those are all great things that you should be looking for when choosing your baby goat. Honestly, I'm so happy with my experience finding a reputable breeder. It has made raising goats that much more of a joy, not having to worry about certain health issues, having healthy goats, and being able to breed my healthy goats and expand my own herd knowing that they have great genetics and that they are healthy. Now that doesn't mean that your goat will never get sick. My Amelia Bedelia, she got listeriosis, but even though listeriosis in goats is often fatal, she beat it. She was healthy before she picked up listeriosis, and through a lot of support, she was able to overcome that disease and is doing great today. If you want to check out that video I have about how she survived listeriosis. It's graphic, it can be a bit hard to watch because of how sick she was, but she survived and she's flourishing today, so happy ending. If you're ready to get baby goats, definitely watch my video on how to set up your goat shed. And if you haven't started your farm yet, what are you waiting for? Get your farm on.
1, 2, 3, 4. Do you want a farm? A wicked awesome farm? Watch this channel to learn what to do. We love to farm and we'll show you. Yeah, welcome to our show.